Okay, can everybody hear me okay? So feel free to unmute yourselves. We use this kind of like an open therapy. So if you have something that you want to talk about, something that's been on your mind, please let's talk about it. Let's get it out in the open. Let's entertain the idea, if you will. Want to talk to you about a few things. I'm sure everybody is more than aware of the new statewide moratorium that was issued, extending the eviction order until September 30th. Nobody shoot me, okay? What does that mean for us as property managers? It basically means we can't even serve a notice for them to vacate until after that date. So if today's the 1st of July, an example, and we want to give a 60-day notice that would end at the moratorium. When the moratorium for evictions is lifted, now they've extended that again to September 30th, so the end of September. We can't even serve that notice until October. So just keep that in mind. Definitely something that we need to be extremely mindful of and pay attention to is that new eviction moratorium. It's probably the newest thing that's happened to us here very quickly, if you will. So that new eviction moratorium has been extended. It is no longer July 31st. It was extended to September 30th. Does anybody have any questions about that moratorium or anything that they want to say about that? Because, I mean, it is quite shocking to us that are waiting for our lockout dates, and then all of a sudden that rug just got pulled out right from under us. So we definitely need to regroup again. I mean, who's to say that they're not going to go ahead and extend that moratorium again? Because that's all we need. Why don't we just open the door and say nobody can evict anybody until December, because it's kind of the way this is starting to unravel anyway. So they pushed us from July 31st for entering the eviction order to September 30th. So we can't even serve a notice to terminate tenancy throughout the state until after that date, just so that everybody's clear, make sure nobody's breaking the rules. We can do no in rent increases right now. We can't terminate tenancy right now. We can't. Here's something that I can tell you. Be mindful and pay attention to your work order requests, because they've fallen off considerably. And that tenant that is not paying the rent, and for the most part, tenants are paying the rent throughout this. I think in April, when this first happened and we were so paranoid, 97% of all tenants in the state of California paid their rent in April, 95% paid in May, and we're seeing that holding steady thus far. So we can't raise rents, we can't increase deposits. We can, however, work with our tenants to the best of our ability with their maintenance requests, especially if you have that tenant that isn't responding to you, telling you how they were affected by COVID or any of those other things. We can approach them from a different perspective, if you will. So somebody that's ignoring you, not wanting to talk to you, stop beating on that door and let's try a different way. Maybe pick up the phone, give them a call and say, hey, just wanted to say I haven't heard from you since March, so wanted to make sure you didn't have any requests for repair or any services that needed to be addressed. Please let us know. Please don't forget we're here. It's another way for you to keep the lines of communication open without asking for money. Okay, so my opinion, not is once this is lifted, I'm still letting people in, you guys, so bear with me. Once we let people in, or I'm sorry, once we get this all moving and things start rolling back into normal, it'll be much easier to handle, much easier to deal with. But as far as that moratorium now from the state, that we can't do evictions until September 30th, that makes, Stacy, I just saw Stacy's eyeballs. They rolled back in her head. They extended the eviction moratorium to September 30th across the state. So I've been on the phone with the law firm this morning because they're starting to get lockout dates from back in March that, you know, somebody had already been evicted. We were just waiting for a lockout. And I wanted to talk to them because in San Bernardino County and Riverside County, they're starting to see those lockout dates come forward. So now my question becomes, are they going to continue with those lockouts that are already scheduled? Or are they going to have to stop and wait until September 30th, and then they'll get back into the lockout process? So that question I don't have answered yet. I tried really hard before we went live to get that question answered, but don't be surprised if you already got a lockout date and it gets rescinded because of this new state moratorium for evictions. And I can see that, I see a question's coming through, I'll get to it. I can see that this is gonna cause more trouble than it's worth. It's not fair to us landlords to keep having to hold this COVID rent loan and it keep extending. That's one thing, but I'm concerned that people may be in the process or close to losing property once this is all said and done. Okay, we have a question here. It says, what do you recommend for tenants who are not paying prior to March? Better to file and get a higher spot in the queue when the courts finally open again. I'm going to be real honest with you, and this is my opinion, not my advice, because you should always take legal advice from your attorney. They're the ones that are standing next to you in court. So my opinion to you is, why not offer them cash for keys? Just saying. I mean, let's talk this out. If we have to wait until we can evict, which now is going to be September 30th before we can even file the notice, and then the courts aren't going to take any new cases for the first 90 days. Okay, so add that 3 months there to your 2-month notice. We're at 5 months. Now, if the court's backed up for 6 months because of everybody doing this all at the same time, we're now dealing with almost a year of going through the legal process. Where that becomes an issue and something that we need to be concerned with is we may want to consider, if we're going to have to wait 9 months, how much is our rent? At $2,000 a month, 9 months of no rent is expensive very quickly, okay? Whereas if we offered to pay them $5,000 to be out in 30 days, it would be much less expensive in the long run when you look at apples for apples. So want to make sure everybody understands you do have that option, but in order to negotiate a cash for keys agreement, you either need to be the owner of the property, a licensed real estate agent working under a real estate broker, or an attorney. So only those 4 people can legally successfully negotiate a cash for keys option. So keep that in mind also. I have not got word from an attorney whether an on-site manager has that capability or not. It may have to come from corporate office. People are still joining us today. So let me back up just a little bit. New statewide moratorium passed. They are extending the non-evictions throughout the state until September 30th. Ouch. Ouch. What that's going to do to the evictions that we had filed prior to the order to shelter in place moratorium, prior to COVID, they were almost ready for lockout and then that all got frozen. We're starting to see some of those lockout dates come forth now. I don't know if this is going to rescind, and I have calls into 2 attorneys and neither one of them got back to me before I went live. So I'm sorry, I don't have that answer. Okay, hold on, I have another question. Can we raise rents in AB 1482 areas not under LA? No, you can't raise rents at all right now across the state. The whole state of California. Don't increase rents, don't terminate tenancy, don't charge any late fees at all, whether they're screaming COVID or not, don't do it. Don't charge late fees, don't charge any fines, don't charge any interest on the rent loan that we're required to give them for 6 months to a year, depending on where you're at. Don't do anything. Put your focus on, hi, did you have any requests for repair? Yes, Stacy, you are unmuted, so ask your question.
So when you mean extending non-evictions through September 30th, yes. Does that mean like if these tenants haven't paid their rent, we now have to give them till October 1st to then give them 6 months to pay it back? Or is this something?
Okay, hold on. two different venues, okay? But they all work together. So let me try a different approach. Just give me a second. Currently, we have an order to shelter in place from our government. That has not been lifted. Until that gets lifted, we don't have a lot we can do. We can't increase rents. We can't charge late fees. We can't charge interest. We can't, okay? We can't terminate tenancy. So once that our order to shelter in place is lifted, it puts a few more keys moving in the issue. However, now they've passed a new statewide moratorium on evictions saying that that order can't happen until after September 30th. So being the first time you could serve a notice to raise rents, terminate tenancy wouldn't be until October 1st. Okay, so at this point, we can't even serve the notice to raise rents or 30 days, 60-day, 90-day, 120-day notice. I'm sorry, because we don't have a 60-day notice anymore, just for those of you that didn't catch that. That happened January of this year. They took away our 60-day notice of rent increase. So that is now 10% or less is a 30-day notice, 11% to 14% is now a 90-day notice, and anything 15% or higher requires a 120-day notice to increase rent. And obviously, for those of you that are susceptible to the rent control ordinance, sorry, I had an incoming call. I rejected it. Those of you that are susceptible to AB 1482 in the rent control ordinance, you won't be raising rents over 10% ever. So you're stuck with that 30-day. But anybody doing 11% or more, make sure you're following those rules, because our 60-day notice of rent increase is gone. It is now 90 days. Okay, so don't forget about that little keynote. Also, if I could put a feather in your cap and make you remember this, please note that with AB 1482, they did not give us an extension for COVID. You should have notified everyone that you are exempt by now. You should also, and you're at the waking hour for this, okay, you guys, I can't put this in your head enough. If you fail to disclose that you are exempt from rent control, then come August 1st, you will have rent control. You will owe those relocation fees just because you failed to disclose that you were exempt. So they're not going to extend that date. There's no talk of extending those dates. So please make sure you're disclosing to your tenants who has rent control and who doesn't. Because if they don't have it and you don't disclose, then you get it anyway. So make sure that you don't make that mistake. It could be very, very costly down the road. 5 years from now when you want them to move out and all of a sudden you're like, what? I got to pay relocation fees? I'm exempt. You didn't notify them. No, you're not. That's how that works. You're guilty by failing to disclose. Does anybody have any more questions for me? Okay, wait, hold on, I'm looking. Doesn't an eviction moratorium ultimately rely on California Judicial Council opening the court system? Seems like that just, yes, I agree. So what you're asking me, Eric, is doesn't the eviction moratorium ultimately rely on California Judicial Council opening up the court system? Seems like that's just as important or perhaps more important. Yes, but what you may not know is there's also a judicial moratorium in place. What does that mean to us? It means that once the courts do open and they are open for business, they are not taking any new eviction cases for the first 90 days. You will be able to file the summons, but not the complaint. So they're not taking on any new cases for the first 90 days. So when you're trying to figure out how much you should offer for cash for keys, make sure you keep that in your head, okay? Because for 90 days, you can't do anything. Then we can't even serve the notice. We may see a lot more cash for keys agreements coming about because of this. Okay, hold on, I got another question. Oh, I don't know what RICO is. And you guys feel free to unmute yourselves and talk to me if you want to. As it stands now, it's 90 days after Newsom removes the emergency order. Absolutely correct. We have a judicial moratorium in place. I do know that there were several law firms that were trying to fight that, if you will, stating that it was against a landlord's rights. So at this point, I don't know that that judicial moratorium has been removed. It's still in place. But as soon as I hear that it has, I'll be telling you guys. You want my honest opinion? Mr. Power Hungry may never remove it. Here's my honest opinion, okay? It's communism, capitalism, you call it whatever you want, but it's starting to control what we are able to do, and that isn't right. So pay attention. And throughout all of this, we still have not heard from the Department of Fair Housing on what's in a reasonable amount of time after an emergency order to shelter in place because of a global pandemic is before we terminate tenancy or increase rents and it not be considered retaliation. So although we're giving these dates and these times, please know, in my mind, they're also false, because fair housing could come in and, let's be honest with each other, we have bed bugs, code enforcement, anything like that. We can't touch them for 6 months. What does a global pandemic do? How much time do they have to recover from that? I mean, it's just one of those things we don't have the answer to. I've spent quite a bit of time on the phone with Fair Housing trying to get a solid answer out of them, and quite frankly, they don't have one yet, okay? And as it gets closer to that shelter-in-place order being lifted, that's when we'll see that change come in. Stacy, you have another question, I know. Okay, you're on the phone, I got you. Okay, and I saw something else come out. Regarding a commercial building, I've been paying half of my rent and the owner is pressing us to sign a payment plan. Can they do that? You're asking me for legal advice, first of all, and I'm not an attorney. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not an attorney. But I can tell you that they recently passed a law regarding commercial tenancy, because there's not a whole lot of protections in commercial management for the tenant, because fair housing doesn't apply. It's not housing, it's right, discrimination, all that stuff. They don't have any of those protections. So the one that was in talk about helping the commercial tenant was actually that they could give you 3 months notice and get out of the term of their lease with 3 months notice if they were affected by COVID. And the reality is we've all been affected by COVID, whether we were trying to buy toilet paper or having to wear a mask going into the store. So what do they mean by affected? That's going to have to come out in trial and error and legalities and yada, yada, yada. My theory is if we don't have to go there, let's not go. You know, we don't want to invite lawsuits to our doors. Stacy, are you ready? It looks like you're off the phone.
I am. Sorry.
Okay.
First of the month.
Yeah, girl, you don't have to tell me. I wasn't going to do this today, but when I saw that moratorium come through, I was like, damn it, I got to tell my people.
Well, I'm glad you are. So we, of course, are backed up on our semi-annual inspections. I've got like 70 inspections I need to do since March. Can we ask tenants to allow us?
You can ask. If they're not comfortable with you coming in, don't push the issue. It's as simple as that.
What we were kind of thinking is, you know, not giving them the option right away, just saying you're due for your semi-annual, but if they email us and say, I'm not comfortable, we were going to make you a Zoom call.
Perfect.
We can do a Zoom call.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure.
You're required, I'm choosing my words carefully, so bear with me. You're required as a property manager to do routine inspections, because if you don't, you're not doing your job. But in all reality, right now we have a government order telling us that we may not be able to do certain aspects of our jobs. So we need to be careful with that and not push and poke. Like all of us that were demanding that tenants prove, how were you affected? Show me your bank statements. You are way over the line, okay? We've all been affected. So it's a matter of opinion. As far as getting them to prove that they were affected, let me give you a little tip and a trick, okay? If you're beating your head against the wall and that tenant just won't talk to you, stop, okay? It's not working. You're gonna have to take a different approach, or even worst case scenario, you need to know how they were affected. It is something that your attorney can propound discovery on your tenants, requiring them to prove how they were affected by COVID-19 in the eviction course. It's part of the interrogatory process. So basically, that's where the attorney could force them to prove how they were affected. You really can't. And the more you do this, the more it looks like harassment. So stop, please. I beg you. Stop beating on their door, demanding that they talk to you, because all you're doing is fueling a fire for a legal battle later. So back up, play nice, talk to them about repair requests. See if there's anything you can do to help make them more comfortable in their home while they're on lockdown. Just try a different approach, because beating that communication for the money isn't going to get you anywhere, but probably in a courtroom, unfortunately. I'm still letting peeps in. People are like, wait, what did I miss? All right, so Stacy, that got you answered? Okay, does anybody have any questions, something they want to talk about? It doesn't have to be about the new moratorium for September 30th. So we can talk about anything anybody wants to talk to. If you have a question, feel free to text it in there in that little box to ask a question, or unmute yourself by all means. You're more than welcome to unmute yourself and ask me a question. I have no problem with that, or ask each other questions. I'm good with that too. You know me, I'm easy. But just to recap, because I had 3 people just jump on really quickly. We got a new eviction moratorium issued across the state that we cannot evict until after September 30th. So come October 1st would be the first day that we could serve a notice, a 30-day, a 60-day, we want our house back, or increase rents. We can't touch any of that stuff until October 1st or later, because they may extend it again. I mean, my crystal ball's broken. I don't know. But we want to be very careful that we're not increasing rents. We're not, even in LA City rent control, I know everybody raises their rents. July, when the CPI changes, they usually do their increase either in July or August. You're not going to be able to. You're going to have to wait. You're going to have to change your date. You raise rents annually, okay? Don't make that mistake, please. I don't want those phone calls. And no termination of tenancy. So no 30-day notices, no 60-day notices. It's not going to fly. It's just not. So don't waste your time. City of Los Angeles changed their municipal code within the City of Los Angeles that says if you even serve that notice right now, you're subject to affirmative defenses and also administrative fines. What does that mean in English to the rest of us? It means a tenant can sue the pants off of you and the court can fine you for doing it. So don't. We'll keep it easy, right? Don't do it. No rent increases, no termination of tenancy. If you need to get them out of your house, probably the best thing that you could possibly do right now is consider cash for keys agreement to get them out in a hurry. But mind you this, we have government order to shelter in place, so you're gonna have to be careful about how you approach that. Again, an attorney can do that, a licensed sales agent, a licensed broker, or the owner themselves. I'm not too sure if an on-site has the capability of successfully legally pulling off that transaction. I had yet to hear from the attorney, and as soon as I get that info, I will let you know. On October 1st, 2020, are allowed to serve a 3-day notice for non-payment. You could be and you couldn't be, it depends. And I don't mean to sound like a jerk when I say that, but in property management, and I'm sure those of you that manage investment property for a living, you'll all agree with me, we don't like to show our teeth unless we can bite. Okay, in other words, we don't want to serve a 3-day notice to pay rent or quit unless we know we can turn around and evict on day number 4. That's my theory, because otherwise, what are you giving them? Toilet paper? I mean, it's a blind threat. You can't do anything with it. It's invalid. So before you serve any notices, I would strongly suggest that you speak to your legal counsel. But here's something I want to put in your head just so it all clicks. If we have to give them 6 months to pay the rent back because of the COVID loan, we can't serve a 3-day on October 1st. We have to give them 6 months to pay that money back. Then we can serve the 3-day. on that money. If they owed money prior to the first moratorium that was issued back in March, and I want to say it was the 15th, so if they owed rent from March 1st to March 14th, and that's all you put in the 3-day, you're probably going to have a better chance doing an eviction on stuff that happened prior to COVID. That COVID thing is just throwing a monkey wrench in the way we do business now. That makes sense? And did that answer your question? I'm trying. So I wouldn't be in a hurry to serve a notice because, okay, you serve a 3-day notice, but the court's not open, so what is it good for? And I'll tell you this, I worked in the law firm for 4 years and I learned a lot there. So one of the things that I learned is if an attorney is ready and somebody's lived in a house, I'm going to give you an example, and they haven't paid rent for a whole year, maybe it's a relative, a family member. I mean, who knows? But if they haven't paid rent for a whole year, what the attorney does is they serve a notice right then and go backwards from there. So what I'm trying to say to you is, even though we now have an order that we can serve the notice, how good is it to us if we can't act on the notice? Make sense? So you're showing your teeth, but you can't bite because you got a muzzle around you. I want to show my teeth, and if you don't listen to me in 3 days, on day 4, I want to start the eviction. That's the way I work those notices. And right now, we need to err on the side of caution. We need to make sure that we're not poking them in the eye and poking that bear. So as soon as all this is lifted, we get served with a lawsuit for harassment or something along those lines. We need to be very careful that we're not pushing the envelope over the edge, if that makes sense. We need to err on the side of caution. We need to slow down and be calm and use our decisions wisely so that we don't end up in lawsuits, because it's instances like this where the lawsuits are generated. I mean, we have a lot of moving parts going on. We have an eviction moratorium now where we can't evict anybody or even serve the notice until October 1st. Plus, we have a shelter in place. Plus, we're in a state of emergency. Got all that? So state of emergency laws apply. The shelter in place laws apply. And the new moratoriums as they come out apply. So we have new moving parts in our book of business. And the reason that we're getting so many answers from when this first started to where we are today, and it keeps changing, is because there's no law for this yet. It's evolving as it happens. So don't run into the fire. Let's stand back, watch somebody else get burned, and then we know not to do it that way, okay? Don't be in a hurry to make a mistake is all I'm trying to say. We need to approach this with kid gloves and be extremely cautious. Anybody have anything? Oh, wait, I got another one. I have a separate parking agreement for parking in a duplex built in 2003. How much can I raise it? Plus, tenants are parking 2 more cars than allowed for a total of 3 big cars on site. They have not paid for the 2 extra cars ever. Should I also serve a notice for the extra cars? I have tow-away signs posted, plus they just ignore me. You're probably going to have to serve a covenant notice, but at this point, depending on what city you're in, you may not be able to. Okay? So as much as I want to tell you, go, 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 I have to see a lot of things. Like your separate agreement. Is it a rental agreement for the parking spot? Because if so, then most likely landlord-tenant would apply. If it's a license agreement, then it's a whole different venue that we go after that way. Licensing, let me help you. You go to Disneyland, you pay $20, you park your car for the day. God knows, I just guessed, maybe it's $40 now. Disneyland, I haven't been there in a while. You bought a license to park your car there. It's not a rental agreement. So different laws apply. It's a license agreement. Does that make sense? So to answer your question, number 1, I'd have to see the rental agreement. Number 2, I'd have to see the parking agreement to see if it's on a license or a landlord-tenant contract. There's just a lot of moving parts. I don't have a yes or no question or a yes or no answer for you. But I see LA, so I wouldn't even touch it. And I'm being honest with you, don't touch it. LA is so crazy right now. downtown LA, I think it was a hybrid form from online. Yeah, I'd have to see the document, and your attorney is going to tell you the same thing. We'd have to see the document. We just need to know, is this a rental agreement, rental, landlord, or is this a license? That's what it's going to boil down to, just to help you. Like fast eviction, etc., Dennis Block. I got you, but again, I'd have to see if it's a license or an agreement. That's the only difference. It depends on the verbiage that it's written in. And if it's under landlord-tenant, then landlord-tenant laws apply, not licensing laws, if that helps you. But yes, you definitely need to look at the way that that's written in order to give you a good rock-solid answer. Anybody else have questions for me? Anybody else have something they want to talk about? Anybody else ready to get on a boat and get off this planet? Me. Stacy's ready. I'm ready to get off the planet. I mean, who would have thought that we would have been challenged by this? Okay, somebody unmuted. Yes.
Okay, this is Sarita. How you doing, everyone?
Hi, Sarita.
Hi. My question is, can I serve?
Wait, hold on, you broke up. Can I serve
a 24-hour notice
to enter a property?
Yes.
You can try, but if they're not comfortable with it, don't enforce it. Because remember, if they refuse to allow entry, then, and I'm just talking in general, in most times, not today, you would then serve a 3-day curable breach of covenant because they're in violation of their lease contract with a new 24-hour notice to enter on that 3rd day. If they didn't let you in, you'd do a second request on a covenant notice and then you'd evict them. Right now, you can't evict. See the problem?
No
so you need
anything.
Right, so you need to just approach it from a different angle and stop being this landlord and start being, hi, how are you? How's everything going? How's the kids? You need to be that person right now. You need to utilize your customer service skills to help you through this. You need to kill them with kindness. That is the best thing that I could tell you of a way to approach. If you're banging your head in the wall, go around and come in the back door. Meaning, don't physically go around and come in their back door, but try a different approach. If what you're doing doesn't work, you got to take a different angle.
Got it. Thank you.
Anytime, anytime. The attorney just texted me. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. I can't believe that the government is doing this. I just saw that come through on my text. So you guys need to know you're not the only ones frustrated. Your legal counsel's frustrated too. And they're frustrated on a whole different level. And just let me put this picture in your head, okay? A lot of law firms don't qualify for COVID, hazard pay, small business loans, yada, yada, yada. So the courts have been closed since March. They haven't made any money. They're still going to be closed now until October. They're not going to make any money. Then we have the judicial moratorium of 90 days. We're into January now, folks, before they make any money. So remember this. I know that we overpay for legal counsel quite a bit. We all have. But God forbid if we didn't have them, where would we be? They need to eat too. If you can find something to help your legal counsel keep their doors open, like maybe they could serve your AB 1482 notices for you. Or maybe they could, I'm telling you, if you can, feed them, okay? Because we need them when all of this is done and over with. We don't want the people that just passed the bar and got out of law school. We want somebody that knows what they're doing. So just remember, they're not making any money right now, and we need to help support our legal counsel so they're there when we need us. Okay, I'm gonna read through some questions really quick. If somebody wants to unmute and ask me something, just holler. We have a client that just bought a duplex and wants the tenant to sign new rent agreements. One of them does not want to sign. What can we do? What city is that in, Monica? Because if it's in the city of Los Angeles, we're going to have one conversation. If it's somewhere else, it'll help me. So, Monica, please let me know what city that's in. Can I serve 3 days? Can't evict apparently in downtown LA. You can't even serve the 3-day notice in downtown LA right now. It causes affirmative defenses and administrative fines from the court. So simply said, you serving a 3-day notice in the city of Los Angeles right now, you're harassing your tenant. They can sue you, and then the court can fine you up to $10,000 for doing it intentionally. Okay, that's how they're looking at it. So in LA, do nothing, please. Thank you. People like my hair. Okay, let me look at another question. What if a tenant causing a nuisance to others, like urinating in public, loud noise, fighting with others? I got you all day long. I got that drunk guy running through the apartment complex naked in Long Beach, trying to jump out the windows. I hear you. Contact your legal counsel. There is something that they can do. Utilize your police, okay? Utilize your police presence. Let them know this is an ongoing problem. So again, it makes it extremely difficult for us to do things, but legal counsel can push through an executive order. They can get a restraining order. There's other things they can do just depending on where you're at is what it's going to boil down to. And I'll tell you right now, anything in city of LA, the attorneys don't want to touch it. County of LA, they're like, eh. And it's just because they're so pro-tenant in that area and they have such a vast amount of legal counsel that will help them for free. And we don't want that. I don't like BOSTA or the Eviction Defense Network. I don't like them. They're headhunters, in my opinion, and I don't want them hunting my head. So in LA, city of LA, don't do anything just quite yet. It's not time. And I know that's hard to swallow, but it is what it is, unfortunately. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Okay.
A tenant in Beverly Hills who hasn't paid 2 months rent because of coronavirus.
Yes. Oh, you broke up, Sarita.
Sorry.
Hold on, I lost you.
I have a Beverly Hills tenant.
I got that. They haven't paid 2 months of rent because of COVID, but I missed the question.
So the question is, do I give them a form of how much they owe, or I won't know because maybe they won't pay July rent? So I just came in late to this meeting.
I understand. So let me explain to you guys a better business practice, okay?
Okay.
I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm giving you a business practice. Your ledger and your lease are the two tools that you have that have all the protections of landlord-tenant litigation. You have a right to a speedy trial, yada, 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 okay?
Right.
Once you take that money that's owned and you put it on a promissory note or a promise to pay,
Right.
what you're doing is taking away all the protections from your rental contract and moving that money to small claims court. Now you can go to small claims and get a money judgment against them, but you can't get possession of your unit, and it's not a speedy trial. You ever sue somebody in small claims? It takes 2 or 3 months for your court date, right?
Right.
That's what they mean by speedy trial. So now you win in small claims, you have a money judgment against them. Yeehaw! If they don't have a job or they're on unemployment, you can't touch it anyway. But you still have to go back through the whole eviction process in order to get possession.
Right. Thank you.
It's a great tool if you have a tenant that's freaking out. How am I going to pay? I need to pay you, blah, blah, blah. And then you have an owner that's going, yeah, how are they going to pay me? How are they going to? It just helps you keep the balance. In the event that you do have to do a promissory note, I wouldn't do it for more than a 30-day period. But I try to stay away from that just because you lose all those protections. And I know you're laughing at me. We have protections in eviction court. Actually, we do. It doesn't seem like we do, but we do. We have a right to a speedy trial so that it goes quickly. That's quick, I know, but it is, trust me. So it's just a better business practice to stick with your lease and your ledger. Make sure there's no late fees on your ledger. Make sure you're not charging them interest for not paying that rent. These are all things that come back at you. Then when it's time and we can actually do something, and a lot of these people may wait the 6 months. They may wait 5 months and 29 days and then pay you in full just because they can. Okay, so we need to take that as it comes. And remember, we're talking about 5 to 8% of our book of business aren't paying. We can still function. We can still, I mean, that's just a very small amount. Think of it as a vacant. It's not making you any money. It's not going to be detrimental to your overall business in a multifamily setting.
Right.
I saw another question come through. So did that answer it for you?
Yes, thank you so much.
Candidates for president, any comments? You want my political views? Well, I know I joke around a lot about it, and I say, you guys, we just can't do anything but get out your 12 gauge, you know, get out your 45. I want to keep my gun rights. I want to continue to be a survivor and not a victim of somebody else's foolishness. So I know gun rights are a big thing with one president and not a big thing with another president. Makes sense? I will tell you guys, I voted for Trump for 2 reasons, and only 2 reasons. Number one, I'm a single mom. I have 3 kids. I have a daughter. I didn't want someone who stayed with a husband that the whole world knew that they cheated on with, and that be a role model for my children. I didn't want my daughter to think that the person leading us in this country says it's okay, so it's okay. So that's my personal opinion there on that one. The other one of why I chose him over Hillary is he's a businessman. That's what he knows. So is he going to get us out of debt? Is he going to turn the economy around? Is he going to provide more jobs? I mean, this guy's a businessman. The business concept is there. I mean, I think if we told him, rather than we have civil unrest, is you have a hostile work environment, he would know how to deal with that better because it's speaking his language, right? So food for thought. I'm not going to tell you where I'm going to go, but yeah, none of the above. All right, I saw another question come through. I'm trying to get to them all, you guys. Some tenants have paid late fees voluntarily without it asking. Should we return it? Keep it as a credit on their future rent? By all means. I don't ever like to give back money, and I know you guys don't either. But if you just document that as a credit, then it's a credit. That way, if you're ever challenged or something happens 5 years from now, that doesn't come back and bite you. So if you just show it as a credit on your ledger, remember I said the 2 most important things you have is your ledger and your lease. If the tenant says they paid and you say they didn't, the burden of proof falls on them, not on you. So your ledger and your lease, or your rental agreement, 2 most important documents you could have, and probably the best 2 tools that you have. I'm looking because it looked like somebody asked me a question. They raised their hand. Monica, do you still have a question? If you do, unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, great. I have tenants that are only making partial rental payments, but they want to set up payment plans already. You just discussed that you wouldn't consider it a good idea. Should I continue to wait?
You can make an oral agreement as a payment plan until you're blue in the face and it has no bearing.
Okay, thank you so much.
Did that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay, once you put it in writing, that's when that now becomes a promissory note, and if it's not paid, is enforceable in small claims, not in eviction court.
Okay.
Your ledger and your lease are enforceable in eviction court.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to say, you can verbally say to them, well, if you guys want to make me a payment on every Friday of $200, I'm fine with that.
Okay,
and
so
the reality is you can't serve them a notice right now. And if you can serve them a notice, you probably shouldn't. And yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, so that answers the question.
Right now, us property managers should be going, of course I'll work with you, because we're forced to. But it also makes us look great because we're not being crabby or cranky about it. And it gives us like a chance to be human for a couple more months, you know, before we have to go back to being robots and doing our job.
Okay, and then my last question is, we've been giving the tenants a notice of missed payments each month. Should we stop that then?
I would send them a copy of their ledger rather than a notice.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Because a copy of their ledger is just a friendly reminder of where they stand today. Whereas a notice could be considered harassment. It could be an idle threat. They could look at you differently. You know what I mean? Right now, we want to keep that bond with our tenants that we do have as nice as we possibly can, just because things are so uncertain. I saw another question come through, so let me go to it. If tenants are on a month-to-month, can I change or serve a new lease to a month-to-month? One guy's been there 4 years. Hold on. If the tenants are on a month-to-month, can I change or serve a new lease for a month-to-month? Okay, so what you're asking me is if, and I saw the other note of the reminder. The reminder's probably okay too, but I try not to use those tools because I think they're impersonable. And that's just my opinion. I mean, I don't want to tell somebody, don't forget you owe this, don't forget you owe this, don't forget you owe this. I want to go, here's your 3-day notice. And if I don't have my money in 4 days, I'm starting the legal process. So it just depends on your style of management. You can stick with that. And I have to go backwards because I already forgot the other question. So give me 2 seconds. I am blonde. On a month-to-month, you can, it depends on what city you're in. So in the city of Los Angeles, your original contract controls, unless all parties agree and sign a new agreement, but you can extend time on them. So if you just want a new month-to-month agreement with similar terms, most likely you could do that. It is in downtown LA. Okay, I got you. I would definitely check with your legal counsel first because it has to be like or similar terms. Okay, so definitely you want to talk to your attorney before you do something along those lines. And hold on, another one came through. Okay, I got that one. Anybody have anything else for me? Somebody's near an airport. I heard an airplane. I'm not real happy about this order, the eviction moratorium being extended. And my question becomes, are they going to do it again? And mind you, that's mind you, that's not the president. That's our Governor Gruesome, right? Governor Gruesome. I know that's not his name, but yes, Governor Newsom is very pro-tenant. And so far, we haven't seen any new assembly bills that stuck yet, or any new laws come out of that. I know we were looking at Assembly Bill 828 very closely. For those of you that aren't aware, we need to notify our congressmen. Basically, what they're trying to do is pass a law that simply says, and I'll break it down for you as best as I can. It simply says that in the course of an eviction, if the tenant was affected by COVID-19, and mind you guys all this, we've all been affected at some point or another. But if they were affected by COVID-19, you as a landlord could be forced by the judge to continue the tenancy for another 12 months and reduce their rents by 25%. So now they're trying to control how long. Oh, the 25% deduction was removed from AB 828. Thank you, Eric. You're awesome. I still don't like it because I don't think they should force us to keep a tenant for another 12 months. It's ludicrous. But you know what? If you reached in your wallet and offered them $10,000 in relocation fees, I'm sure they'd take it and be gone. You know? Hold on. I saw something else come through. Hold on. I'm not real good at this part of it, you guys. There's always jagged stuff. There's jagged stuff in everything. And like I've been trying to explain to everybody, the reason everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off is this has never happened before. we're writing history and writing the rules as it evolves. So that's why we're getting so many changes, so many delays, so many extensions, is the people above our pay grades are still trying to figure this out. So with that eviction moratorium, just so you know, it should also come piggybacked with a foreclosure moratorium as well. Yes, ignoring the Constitution, I couldn't agree more. It's so ludicrous what they're trying to figure out amongst all of this. And, you know, we're along for the ride. We are no longer driving. COVID-19 is driving the bus. We're along for the ride. And as much as I could tell you, don't run into that fire thinking you know how to handle this, because the reality is none of us do. This has never happened before. So we're going to have to approach this very gingerly and very cautiously so that we don't end up in a discrimination lawsuit, a fair housing lawsuit, a retaliation problem. And none of us want that. We don't want to deal with BASTA. Tell us more about foreclosures by the bank. I could tell you if we have an order in place that we can't evict, the banks can't foreclose. Okay? So the same thing that hits eviction applies to foreclosure. So as it sits right now, if you're behind on your payment and we were worried that come today or the end of July, we would be free and we would be having to worry about that again, they can't. If we can't evict, the banks can't foreclose. It goes both directions, if that answers your question. So if you're behind on your mortgage now, they can't do anything until September 30th as well. So that would fall under the same guidelines. Foreclosure falls under the same guidelines as far as the moratoriums go. There's a freeze on them.
Does this apply for apartment mortgages, apartment buildings?
It applies through the state, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So the governor extended our eviction moratorium that nobody could be evicted. Originally, well, it's changed a few times, but our last most current date was July 31st. That has now been extended to September 30th. That happened yesterday, late afternoon.
They'll probably move it again.
They could.
Yeah.
I have a crystal ball. My crystal ball's broken, but they could move it again. They could extend it again. And even at this point, you know, we have the judicial moratorium. So once everything does lift, we're not going to be able to even utilize the court services for the first 90 days. So, you know,
You're ready for a long ride.
a really long ride, in my opinion. I worked at a law firm for 4 years before I stepped out to do this on my own. And I will tell you that once the courts get inundated, it screws up everybody. Okay. And let's just think about this. Okay. There's a whole lot of us owners out there that are fed up. We're broke. We're tired of paying for these tenants that are sitting in there, getting drunk, causing problems, and they're getting paid more money than when they were working, but they're not paying us. It's extremely frustrating. I get it. I understand. But the reality is, if we go doing it this way, we're not going to get anywhere. And if all of us as landlords go pounce at the same time, it's just going to inundate the courts and slow the whole process down. I see another question. Just to clarify from you earlier, comments on rent increases. Are you saying there's a statewide rent freeze? Yes. You cannot increase rents right now. You can't increase rent. You can't terminate tenancy. You can't. You can't even serve the notice.
What if you have a vacant apartment? Can you raise the rent from the prior tenant?
Yes, but not more than 10%, because we're in a state of emergency. We have a lot of laws governing us and covering us right now. So go ahead.
I'm raising it 5% from the prior tenant.
Not right now, you're not.
You just said I could. You just
said,
it's
vacant. I'm sorry.
Vacant.
Blonde. Remember, Sarita? I'm blonde.
No, I'm blonde too, so, okay.
On the vacant, you can do that up to 10%.
Right.
And I'll teach you guys something I learned at the law firm. Okay. You do have the capability in a state of emergency. Sometimes you've got to talk to your attorney. That's the person that's going to save you, not me. Okay. I don't get to battle in court. I'm not my thing. But I have seen where attorneys have taken the landlord's receipts for rehab. Maybe they took out carpeting, put in all hardwood flooring, put in granite countertops. So if you do a significant amount of upgrades to the property, it does give the attorney something to argue. And we're seeing that being somewhat successful so far. But there's only a matter of time before they put a monkey wrench in us. But as far as that goes, if you've totally rehabbed the unit and you have all these expenses that you incurred, maybe you did new piping. I mean, I'm talking about major rehabbing. So if you put in all new piping and got rid of those old lead pipes and put in copper pipe or whatever, that may be something that you could increase a little bit higher and the attorney could go to bat for you if it was challenged. But I would definitely talk to my attorney before I did anything. Somebody asked me, does that include commercial? Are you talking about for the eviction moratorium, that we can't do any evictions until after September 30th? Because the answer to that is yes. No evictions. I got a question on commercial rent increase? Absolutely. No increases in rents and no termination of tenancies for anything. Commercial, industrial, residential, it's just not worth it right now. You got to look at it this way. Our governor, God love him, put a temporary law, that's what moratorium means, for us to shelter in place. And now he put that eviction freeze on the whole state. The whole state. For people that were already in eviction and then COVID hit, I had a lady, I feel so bad for her. I want to cry with her every time she calls me. She was 2 days away from lockout on a tenant that just ran her through the ringer. Shelter in place order came, sheriff's office closed, boom, they're stuck. So she's been riding it this whole time with not the best people in her property, and they're taking her for a ride, and it's just horrible because she can't do anything. She can't do anything. Okay, hold on, let me read this. What shelter in place when bars and restaurants are dining? Okay, not all bars and not everything's been opened, and you'll agree with me when you really start paying attention. So we're still under the shelter in place until everything's open. Nail salons are not open yet. They don't allow people to go get their nails done. There's a few things that aren't open yet. Until those open, we're still on shelter in place. So everything has to open. We have to go back to normal in order for that to be lifted. We're not quite there yet. We're close though. Anybody have anything else for me? I just want to make sure I'm answering all your guys' questions. And most importantly, thank you for joining me today. It reminds me that I'm not by myself. You guys are all still out there. Sometimes it gets scary when we think we're alone.
Patty?
Yes.
What if a commercial tenant approaches us to renew their lease and it has an increase?
I would postpone the renewal. That's me. I would postpone the renewal until we're clear, or I'd call my legal counsel and just verify. And the reason I keep telling you guys, call your legal, I can't give you legal advice. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not an attorney. So it's my way of protecting me, but I would definitely contact your legal counsel. If they're telling you you can do it this way, then by all means, that's who's standing next to you in court. That's who you're paying to protect you. So listen to them. I just try to keep you getting, my job's to help you line up all your ducks so when you get to court, you have everything in order. And we didn't screw anything up. Everything's perfect. It helps the attorney fight your case better. And then I saw something else come through. Let me peek. Did that answer your question?
It did, but the rent, well, it wasn't so much a rent increase. It was just the same rental income payment, but for another year.
you're extending the term, not increasing the rents, that's not an issue, but I double check with your legal counsel.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And again, that's me trying to protect me. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not an attorney. And somebody asked if you guys can email me questions. You guys can always email me questions. That's widget@widgetsway.com. You guys can also send me text messages to my phone number, and I'll give you guys all my Widget phone number. It's 855-WIDGET-5. You can either call me or text me on that number. I'm in this with you guys. I mean, I have investment property. I have tenants. 2 of my tenants tested positive for COVID. I got scared. They told me I'm going to be a little short on the rent, but I should have it by the end of the month. They did that 2 months in a row, and now they're just paying current. So I'm extremely fortunate, I know, but I've played nice the whole time. So I've always said to them, oh, don't worry about it. We'll work something out. Just let me know when you can pay it. And I'm not going to charge you a late fee. I understand. Well, it made me look really good. So they worked harder to try to get that money into me, and they did. So just saying, you might want to change your approach right now, because it's our customer service skills that we have to rely on. The laws aren't there to protect us. We don't have that help right now. So if you have questions about how to approach something, a different way to approach, you can always call me or text me, pick my brain, use my 25 years plus of experience so that we don't learn things the hard way. I'm all about sharing the knowledge and sharing the love. And I just want to let you guys know, later this month, I am going to do a webinar called Crisis Control. I did prolong it and postpone it because I had a couple of questions that I really wanted to sit down and drill not only into a landlord attorney, but also into a tenant attorney, just to make sure that I'm giving you guys good, rock solid information and none of the processes have changed. The crisis control sounds like we need it right now because of COVID, but in all reality, it's how to deal with a SWAT team raid, how to deal with a drug grow house, how to deal with a death in a unit. Those crises that happen to us every day. I'm not talking about a global pandemic. I'm talking about a car crash through the front of my building into a tenant's unit. What do I do? So those kinds of crises and how we deal with those kinds of crises, fire, flood, acts of nature, rattlesnake bites. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on of what we can come across in our daily happenings. And I just want to make sure that everybody's rock solid in those, especially when it comes to a death in a unit. I have a lot of experience in that. Unfortunately, murder, death, suicide, natural causes, you name it. I've been through the ringer with that. And just because the tenant died, their lease doesn't. So a lot of people don't understand that. They don't realize that. And there's a lot of things you have to do to help make sure that you're protected in many, many ways. So please watch for that. That's going to be crisis control. And I'll be doing that one later this month. And we will be in depth detail for those crisis ones. These new situations, should we still, it says in these situations, should we still new tenant applications? I'm going to assume you're asking, should you still be processing new applications? Should you still be showing properties? Should you still be taking on new tenants? Absolutely. Because if they qualify to pay the rent, then they qualify to pay the rent. And we're already bleeding. We need to stop some of that bleeding. So if we get a good tenant in there that's paying the rent and dealing with everything like tenants should be, the ideal tenant, then we're recouping some of that for those tenants in there that are hunkering down, if you will, until all of the laws filter out or their work filters out or whatever becomes of that. I'm going to say that of those people that aren't paying us, I'm going to guess that we're going to see quite a bit of them. I would say 70% are probably going to pay that by the time the due date comes, so that they don't deal with eviction. They just want to exercise their rights. And that's what I'm hearing through. Just so you guys know, I belong to several tenant advocate groups. I know, but what's a better way to figure out what they're teaching our tenants than to go pretend we're one, so that I can help you prepare for what may be thrown at you. So with that being said, know that a lot of them are holding their rents just to make sure you're following the rules. I mean, that's something they're talking about in the tenant groups. Should we make our accepting standards harder? That's up to you. I'll give you mine right now, and I can give it to you in detail. But there's key words in mine, like you must have good credit, a FICO score of 650 or higher. Here's the thing. I just said you must have good credit. So if you have a late payment on your credit report, can I legally deny you and it not be considered discrimination? You're welcome. The other one I like to use that acts as a great loophole is all parties must see the unit before applying. And I'm not talking about online. Gives you an opportunity to talk with them, even if you're just saying, hello, yes, check out the unit. Also, for those that have agents that check out keys, it makes it difficult because a lot of times agents will go in, take a bunch of pictures, send them to their client, and now you're ready to rent to this person. They're going to move in. They show up at the property and say, well, I didn't know the bedrooms were upstairs. I don't want this house. But in the meantime, you've been holding it for 3 weeks for them. So I always put that in mine as well. Mine's you got to make 3 times the amount of the rent, no evictions. All adults 18 or older must apply. You must see the unit. No felony convictions for manufacturing of illegal substance or for crimes of great bodily injury. So I use both of those on there. And if you guys want a copy of mine, I'd be more than happy to send it to you. Just shoot me out an email or a text message and tell me you want my sample criteria. But if you change your criteria, you always want to, at the bottom, put revised and the date. So that if somebody's using your old criteria sheet to try to get in on your new rules, you could show them, oh, I'm sorry, that was revised since then. The new copy's here, and just hand them the new copy. So you always want to keep a copy whenever you change and write revised and the date, because that's what's going to help protect you from a discriminatory or a fair housing lawsuit. That key is there, and you always want to keep at least one of those sheets, whether it's in your internal file, your paper file, your cloud file. Keep, every time you make a modification, change the date, keep that, okay? And then keep that document. Don't let it get run away from you. Did that answer your question? If it didn't, let me know and I'll approach it from a different angle. But yes, yeah, okay, good, good, good. Does anybody have anything else they want to discuss? Any questions they may have?
Sorry.
No, it's cool. I like Rocky.
That was fun. That was
We all get to giggle.
That was cute.
We all get to giggle a bit.
Play it again.
Well, I have a question about the 10% rent raise.
Okay.
So for a decontrolled, a vacant unit that someone moved out of, you're saying there can only be a 10% raise above what the last tenant was paying? Is that for the city of
Yes.
Los Angeles? I'm sorry,
Not the city of Los Angeles. Hold on.
Right, I'm
Remember
sorry.
when I know. Remember when I
Okay.
started this, I said we don't have one law protecting us, protecting tenants right now. We have several.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have AB 1482, which is the statewide rent control. We have the temporary moratorium in place from the governor to shelter in place, no evictions, no rent increases, no fines or penalties for doing this. We also were deemed being in a state of emergency because of this. It's a state of emergency that's governing your rent increase. That's California Penal Code 396 subparagraph B, just so you know. But
So my
it's
question,
that one that's messing you up right now.
my question is so the 10% increase is something new. I mean, it's new. It wasn't before.
Hold on. California Penal Code 396 subparagraph B is the California Penal Code for this. It is not a civil code. So it is something that if you raise the rents over 10%, your tenant calls the cops come out and they can either take you to jail or give you a ticket to appear in court later. It's a misdemeanor. Okay. And I'll give you an example of why they did it, and it'll make sense to you. And then you'll be like, I get it. Remember all those fires in Northern California that we had?
Yeah, I
A couple
remember.
years back. This law just came out right before those fires. Okay.
To prevent rent gouging.
Price gouging in a state of emergency. Okay. And what that says is anyone that's been affected by the state of emergency. Okay. How do we know if incoming tenants have been affected or not? We don't. So it's a loophole we have to be cautious about. But there was a woman in Northern California who had a house come vacant in the surrounding areas of all those counties that burned. Okay. She raised her rent from $2,200 to $4,900 because of supply and demand. All those people needed to live somewhere. She tried to take advantage of that. Okay. They busted her, charged her with 3 counts, and that is still in litigation. There is no outcome from that case yet. They are still duking it out of what she can and can't do. So it's a relatively new law. It's been in place for about 2 years now. It was modified on January 1st. It also has to do with the prices of water in a crisis. And they should have put this on toilet paper, I'm just saying. But in the event of an earthquake, if the grocery store is handing out water and batteries as an example, they can't charge you 10 gallons or $10 for 1 gallon jug of water. That would be price gouging in a state of emergency. Therefore, the store would be susceptible to these fines, penalties, and criminal charges. Just to give you an example, they specifically mention housing in paragraph B. That's why I keep referencing paragraph B. I just don't want anybody to do it. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want you guys to go to jail. I don't think anybody looks good in orange. I know I don't. No thanks. It's just not worth it. And here's the reality. If you're bringing it up to market value, and this is just me talking to you, I'm not giving you advice. You're bringing it up to market value. You've done all these repairs.
Yes.
We're talking about price gouging during a state of emergency. And currently California across the state is in a state of emergency because of COVID. So we can't do any increases over 10%, or it could bring criminal charges on whoever signs the notice.
Even if you rented it to a Section 8 tenant who has a voucher for a certain amount?
If you raised it over 10% to bring it up to market value, yes, you could be susceptible to that. But I would definitely talk to your legal counsel. They're the ones that are going to battle with you in a courtroom, not me. Okay, and then let me put it this way. All of us adults know that we have to stop at a stop sign. Would you agree with that statement?
Correct.
Yes. So I can tell you, yes, you need to stop at a stop sign. That's the law. But if you ran the stop sign and got a ticket, it would be legal advice for me to tell you how to get out of the ticket. So by just telling you what the law says in simple terms, I'm technically not doing anything wrong. But once you start asking me how to fix that, that's where I get into trouble, and I don't want to do that. Yeah. It's not worth my credentials. Okay? I got way too many of them behind my last name that look like alphabet soup. I'm not giving them up for anybody. So when you hear me say that, just know I'm trying to save myself. All right, I saw some more questions come through. Let's see what we got. If a tenant moves out, how much are we allowed to raise the rent for the new tenant applying for the unit? What number is the law? It's California Penal Code. So it's a penal code, not a civil code. It's 396 subparagraph B. And the reason I know that so well is I've written a lot of articles on it. I've taught a lot of classes on it. I'm very familiar with the statute. Hold on, let me look at the question again, because if a tenant moves out, how much are we? Okay, if a tenant moves out right now, you can raise the rent no more than 10%. Non-rent control property, no more than 10% on a vacant. I know we're not talking about the statewide AB 1482 because we got vacancy deed control taken out of there, so we don't have that issue. So usually in a normal scenario, in the normal world, tenant moves out, you can raise your rent up to market value. Can't do that right now because technically we're in a state of emergency. It should only be 10%. Again, If you've done major improvements, major upgrades, have major expenses, that is something I'd talk to your attorney about, because they're the ones that are going to have to save you in court, not me. But working at the law firm, I did see a few cases where there was extensive improvements. They replaced all the piping and the plumbing in a unit. We all know how expensive that is. It's not cheap. That's major reconstruction. So they utilized that to account for the increase of why it was over 10%. And we did see that the attorney argued that successfully. So you do have some options, but it's definitely something you don't want to try to figure out on your own from trial and error. It's definitely something you want to talk to your legal counsel about. Did that answer both those questions in one shot? I'm trying. As far as people that are moving out on their own right now, your law for 21 days to do your disposition of security deposits still counts. You still have 21 days to get them that money back. If they owed you rent, this is the time to claim it in your disposition of security deposit, folks. So don't think that you can't. I mean, you have that option still. They still owe that money. Any more questions for me?
If the tenant moves out and we do the deposit refund, but it surpasses what we had for them, usually we just send them to the creditors for collections, and or we file with small claims. What should we do now? Just hold off?
Okay, let me explain something to you on a whole different perspective, okay? You can still put them in collections right now. However, if you want to go after them in small claims, it all depends on how your agreement is. So on an oral agreement, your statute of limitations is 2 years. So if your agreement was just a verbal agreement, you have 2 years before that you can wait before you file a small claims case. If you have a written contract, it's 4 years. So I know that that's your normal process and procedure, is just to turn around and file the small claims case against them and use the disposition of security deposit as the basis for your case. But at this point, wait. Courts aren't even open. We can't do it if we want to, okay? But the reality is we have up to 4 years to get that money judgment against them if we have a signed rental agreement after they vacate. So waiting right now isn't going to hurt anything. And the reality is, if you get a money judgment against them right now and they're not working, they're on unemployment, you can't touch those funds anyway. So I would push those to the back burner until legal counsel says, until all these moratoriums are lifted and everything's functioning back at normal, and then I'd file those small claims cases. So basically I'd be pushing them to the side, have them all ready to go. So when the hammer falls, we're ready to rock and roll, but I wouldn't try to pursue that at this time. Did that help?
Yes.
Okay. Are you kidding? I hear you right now. You're all happy. I got 4 years. I didn't know. You don't have to do that right away. You got 4 years. Anything else?
I have anytime after 1 hour from now. Is that okay? I'm just okay.
Oh, I thought you were asking me something. He's unmuted. I'm like, what's he saying?
2:30. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna wait for him to come back.
Okay. Thank you, Demo.
Raul, we
Yes.
all want to know what we're doing at 2:30. Are you buying lunch? Are you buying lunch? Come on.
I think I'm going to. Yes, I am going to be having lunch at 2:30.
I'm not in California
today.
right now, so you're going to have to drive quite a ways.
Well, I thought you were in California.
I am on vacation, so I'm leaving for the I'll be on the Jersey Shore tomorrow. So I'm excited. But yes.
Good for you. That's
Yay.
awesome.
If you can't beat them, run.
When's the next Zoom?
I do these every Wednesday. It's Wednesdays with Widget. And basically it's like a powwow group where we can all talk about our challenges, what's facing us. I mean, when this COVID thing first happened, we all got on here and was, how are you doing tours? How are you showing your vacants? How are you? So we just kind of all brainstorm together and come up with a process and procedure that works for everybody and is still in compliance with fair housing rules and regulations. So we all try to use this, for lack of a better term, as a property management support group.
That's awesome.
And sometimes I have attorneys come on as guest speakers. I have various guest speakers that join us. So that's fun too, because they get to powwow with us and you can ask them questions directly. And I love it because it doesn't cost anything and we all get to be reminded that we're not alone.
Right.
There's many people dealing with the same challenges we're dealing with.
Many. That's true.
Many. And for the most part, our tenants are paying the rent. We have those few that are challenging us. And I say as nicely as I can, just treat them as better than you ever could, because it's your customer service skills that are going to make or break you during a time like this. And we all, and let's face it, we as property managers, as homeowners, are taking the brunt of this. I mean, if you manage investment property every day, you're getting it from the tenant, you're getting it from your boss, you're getting it from building ownership, you don't have any of the answers, and you still got to smile and hold it all together. So for those of you that have a property manager that manages your investments, do something nice for them, because they've been crapped on for the last 3 months, okay? Trying to answer all of our questions and get all that together. We are taking the brunt of it, and we have to do something to help keep us grounded so that we don't freak out, flip out, lose our minds, and do something that we are going to regret later.
Good.
Anybody got anything? I'll end it for today, and I'll see you guys all next Wednesday. And like I said, it'll be after that that we'll have our webinar in depth and detail on crisis control, dealing with a death in a unit, a car crash into a unit, a fire, a flood, mold, what to say, what not to say, what to ask, so that you're not chasing your own tail, what to say to the insurance company if you have to talk to them. So we're digging into my bag of tricks in depth and detail and giving you guys a solid process, procedure, what to say, what not to say, when to use your fogging techniques, all of that. And it's so nice when you have that, because it sucks when all you can do is go, I don't know. You know, I don't know what to do. I don't know who to call. I don't know where to start. So from that perspective, I think it would be extremely helpful for the crisis control, not just, it's not global pandemic related. There is a small portion in there of that, but definitely want to focus on our day-to-day challenges that get thrown at us, you know, at 5 minutes to 5 on a Friday of a 3-day holiday weekend. Okay, hold on. I got more questions coming through. I just want to address them so that everybody's getting what they want. Thank you, and have a great, safe trip. Thank you. I plan on doing that. And then is Zoom's in the library to look at if we can't make it to the webinars? Yes, for the most part they are. And it just reminded me that I did not lead this one with a date, but today's July 1st, 2020, for those that don't know. Be careful when you're watching past videos, because if you start watching the ones from COVID back in March that we were having, or in April, the laws have changed since then. The moratoriums have new end dates since then. So if you go back and listen, by all means, you may learn something, you never know, but you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with the most current rules and regulations that are happening, because they do change quite often, as we're all finding out. All right, so if nobody has anything else, I will leave you guys for today, and hopes that I see you next Wednesday to spend your lunch hour with me, Wednesdays with Widget. And maybe we'll even have an attorney next week as our guest speaker to help talk to us about questions that we have, getting legal advice and things along those lines. Also know that we have a whole nother aspect of protections for us. There is a new product on the market that is tested and tried and true. I just want to let you guys know because I've never had this opportunity before, and it's a great tool to have. It is insurance that covers tenants' rent default. So if the tenant doesn't pay the rent, this company will first offer them cash for keys, then hire the attorney, do the eviction, pay you back your legal fees up to $1,500, up to 6 months lost rents, and it's like $50 a month, give or take. So it's a great tool we have. I've never had that before. I mean, it's like, oh, wait, well, you have insurance if they don't pay the rent? You know, there's something new. Wait, what are you talking about, Patty? So that's Eric over at Reassure Rent. He joins us often as well. So that's kind of nice to know that we have some other services out there to help protect us, especially when you're at the top of your margin and you don't have much wiggle room and then the tenant loses their job. We need to have something there to help protect us. And Eric and I have worked out different ways to approach it, different ways to implement that, even a way to get the tenant to pay for that expense of that extra $50 a month. So I will definitely have him back. He usually joins us. He wasn't able to today. It's nice because he's also an attorney, so he can answer legal questions, give you legal advice, yada, yada, the things I can't do. All right, you guys, it's been great today, and I thank you all for joining me. It means so much to me, and I hope everybody learned something. Remember, no rent increases, no late fees, and now the eviction moratorium, or the no evictions, no foreclosures, has been moved until September 30th. So we can't even serve a notice until October 1st, and that may change again, mind you. But for now, we're in this for a couple more months, folks. All right, you guys all have a wonderful week. I will see you next Wednesday with Widget, and we'll be on the Jersey Shore possibly then. All right, I'll talk to all of you soon. Again, if you need to email me, use widget at widgetsway.com. If you need to call me, that number is, apparently I ate a frog. That number is 855-WIDGET-5. And please watch out for that crisis control webinar. It should be good. I got a couple of apartment associations wanting me to teach the same thing, but I want to give it to you guys first. So we do have that coming up as well. Keep an eye on that in your email so that we can get that all set up also. All right, you guys, you have a wonderful day. And if you need anything, you know how to find me and hunt me down. You guys, be safe, be cautious, and use your fogging techniques. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.